we should say, hey, if I told you about the internet in 1998, would you have wanted to get involved with it sooner? Of course, the answer is going to be yes, right? Like there's so many opportunities. And I would say, okay, take that shot, right? If you think you can, you'll survive for 24 months. I mean, we're not going to roll everything out and do everything in, that quick a time. We're still humans. But the reality is the opportunities on the table right now, every industry is going to be remixed because of this collapse of services and software into each other. Don't you want to be a part of that? Like, that's a massive opportunity.
Welcome to the New Talent Playbook Podcast, your go-to resource for building exceptional teams and thriving businesses. Each episode delivers actionable insights on harnessing offshore talent, integrating innovative technology, cultivating a vibrant company culture, and attracting and retaining top performers. Subscribe now to never miss an episode. For more resources, visit the newtalentplaybookpodcast.com, where you can download this episode's free workbook designed to help you apply today's insight to your business. And now, here's your host, Rob Levin.
Alan Pentz is the owner of OwnerRx, where he helps business owners understand and adopt AI in practical, real-world ways. As a hands-on investor and operator across industries like government consulting, AI software, and defense manufacturing, Alan brings a unique frontline perspective on how AI is changing how businesses run and what owners need to do to keep up. And among those owners, you can include me. I took Alan's course last fall, and I loved it. It was an eye-opener for me. So, Alan, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Rob. It's great to be here.
Yeah, great to see you. So let's start off with this one here. AI is everywhere, and it's all you read about, or almost all you read about. I guess you're in the DC area. You probably read about other things as well, or hear about other things.
I try to avoid that. Once you live here, you're like, I don't want this anymore. Right?
So for business owners, what's real and what's hype? What are you seeing? Because you're speaking with business owners every week.
As far as actual adoption on the ground, there's not that much real. So I would say that I think we're about to enter, well, we've kind of been in this golden age of single player AI usage. So for someone like me, I ran a bigger company and promoted someone to be CEO about a year and a half ago. And through some looking at other things, I ended up going really deep on AI for the last year. And I would say that in the last 6 months, and particularly the last 4, my ability to build agent systems using AI has gone through the roof, right? Hence why I started teaching these classes, because people ask me about it. And I've been able to 10 times my productivity. It's a little insane. I mean, there are times where people talk about AI psychosis when you're in Claude code, because you're doing stuff and you're completing things and you see it become real. And for somebody like me who always wanted to be able to do that but could never sit down and had the patience to learn code, it is pretty intoxicating to be able to just build stuff. So from an individual standpoint, I think AI is like a secret weapon right now. And if you have it and you know how to use it, it is unbelievable, right? And the people who actually know how to use it and have the time to figure it out. So that's what I had the advantage of, right? I had the time. I didn't have to run a company. And those people are young. They don't have the experience yet. And they probably aren't hitting our kind of regular Main Street business world as much. They're coming out of Y Combinator and, the venture capital funded. They're coming, but they're not quite here yet. And then where the real breakthrough for business is going to be is when it becomes a multiplayer.
You've mentioned single player, now multiplayer. Can you explain that a little bit?
So I can sit and write what I need to do. I can build programs for myself in Claude code, and I run it out of my terminal or out of my Claude app or out of Codex, which is OpenAI's model. And I'm flying. I can just do whatever I want. And then as soon as I need to go give it to somebody else who doesn't really understand it, and I've got to get them authentication, and I've got to deal with the fact that they put their password in the wrong place, and blah, 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 all the user error that comes. And they ask me what the problem is instead of asking Claude. So it's stuff like that, right? And then you're just like, oh, this is a nightmare, right? Or you're dealing with old pieces of software that don't even have an API. Like our terrible payroll software that we use at my old company, they wanted to have a discovery session about getting API access. I was like, I write APIs in 5 minutes. What are we talking about here? We have to book a meeting. So you just run into that.
It's not 2005 anymore. Yeah.
Right, exactly. So you just run into that. kind of stuff when you're trying to scale it to other people. And it's very frustrating. And when you're flying at 30,000 feet, it's an abrupt thing to be walking back on the ground with regular old former technology problems. But the hope is we're starting to see the first signs of good multiplayer AI. So I think the first real step was just in January, and that was Anthropic, who makes Claude, came out with a thing called Claude Cowork, which kind of simplified the interface, took care of some of the security concerns, which we could talk more in depth about when you're using Claude Code. It's very powerful, right? Claude Cowork narrowed the range of what it could do, made the notifications easier. So basically, that started what they decided that's going to be their core product. So they licensed it from Anthropic, and it's coming out as Copilot Cowork soon. And so I think we're starting to see this beginning of that is now the enterprise is going to start rolling this kind of thing out. And it, not like, Microsoft Copilot just was terrible, right? But this, with the Anthropic model, this is going to be good. And then people are going to start realizing, oh my gosh, we can do all this stuff. So I think we're about in the phase change of that. It's still going to take 6 to 12 months for most organizations to adopt this, but I think we're on the verge right now.
Gotcha. So again, you're working with business owners every week. I think the first cohort was the one I was in, which was last fall. You have another one right now. What's surprising you, if anything, about the way that they're reacting to AI? And I guess there's a range, right? But so just talk to me about that range and what surprises you.
I think the thing that I've noticed the most is just the fact that you have to change the way you think about technology. So we did this thing for the new cohort where we're really focusing on Cowork now. I'm not trying to get people to use Claude Code anymore.
Right.
It's tough. But with Cowork, I built this sort of database, you connect to things in this world through what they call an MCP connector. It stands for Model Context Protocol. It's basically like the API connection. You use Cowork can connect to all your software, your email, blah, blah, blah. Right. So I built this thing where you use it. It's called Forge, and you connect it to your Cowork, and then it takes you through each session. It gives you an assessment, you do some stuff, and then it saves it. And so it's like this assistant that helps you through the course, right? And so, like, when I was helping people get it set up, they would email me and be like, well, what do I do with it? And I'm like, well, ask it. It knows, right? So it's like this, and I wasn't trying to be a jerk about it. I was just trying to make the point, like, now that you have this connection and a universal answering machine sitting there, you don't need to ask me anymore. Just ask it.
Right. I believe after taking your course, I've been up on AI to some degree, certainly not at your level for some time, but in taking your course by building something, which we did during the course a few times, that started to give me a sense of what the capabilities were and a better idea of how to interface with it, even though, of course, I'm still learning. Would you agree with that? To really understand the capability, you have to build something, or is there another way to understand what AI is capable of?
Yeah, I mean, I think you got to build because it is such a mindset shift. I can tell you stuff conceptually, but like until you see it for yourself, it doesn't really register with people. That's at least what I've found. And so getting in, and like right now, we just built our first skill, which is a thing that you do with, it's a new open source kind of standard. And when you see people break through and they're like, oh, so like everything's a skill, and you're like, yeah. So now I can encode my entire company into a set of skills that I can send to people, provision people with 100%, right? So it's like this thing where you realize at this very granular level, I did this thing that makes me more productive or took care of something I didn't want to do. And then you start thinking about it and you're like, oh my gosh, this can change everything about what I do, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's such a big shift in mindset that until you see it, you just can't accept it. I don't think. People think it's all BS, right? Oh, it's overhyped, it's a hype machine or something.
Right. So what else should business owners be doing other than playing with it? Is there anything else that they should be doing in order to start to really appreciate what the potential is on how they can use AI to improve their company? Well, I'll stop there. Then I have a part B to that.
Yeah. So I'm going to go a little bit like more aggressive on this because Yeah, go play with it, right? I mean, obviously, get your hands dirty. But I think we're at a point where it's pretty clear what's going to happen with at least knowledge work, right? So think about what a knowledge worker is. It's somebody who uses data and machines or tools to complete work for a company or an organization, right? And so we
Right.
used to use notebooks and slide rules, and then we used Excel, and then we use Word, and we use PowerPoint. And now all of those things can be done by the AI. So now we use AI to do knowledge work. And it's a universal machine, it's a generalized technology, right? So the software that we used to have to pay these highly specialized people to build is now almost free. Like, no, everyone's not going to make all their own software,
Right.
but the value you can extract from a company for software is going like this, right? It's going down. So what's going to happen is that everyone becomes a software engineer. All knowledge work and code kind of collapse into each other. So if you run a knowledge-based company, if you're in marketing, accounting, law, consulting, almost anything, you are going to be building and using software more than ever before because AI can just create it for you. But that changes how your business is going to be used and what people are going to expect from you. So just take the example of that Forge thing I talked about. If everyone's working in co-work and you're the accountant and you don't have an MCP connector that helps your client do their accounting, and they have to like do some stupid meeting with you, like my stupid payroll company, they are going to fire you because someone else is going to come along and be like, hey, you know what? Just attach this connector and it'll do all that stuff for you.
Right. So to be clear, you're talking about not just replacing the software over time that you're currently using. You're actually talking about building software that's not just there for you to use, but software that will do the work.
Yeah. So what our jobs is going to become is like for a lot of tasks, we're going to go from doing the work to managing and building the agents that do the work. And
Yeah.
so we still need to manage them. They're like employees, right? So the other thing I think people need to understand that I didn't really pick up early on is that AI is not deterministic software. It's not a cell in Excel, right? That where you go 1 + 1 = 2. It has thinking, and that's part of its value, right? So it's never going to be like perfect, and we're going to have to work with it. And so the point is that's what knowledge work will become. Like if you're a marketing person, you're going to be working with the agents inside somebody's company to make sure the agents are delivering to the customer the way they need to. And my take is there's this old expression in business, everything's always bundling and unbundling. That's what the CEO of Netscape famously said, right? Jim Barks, or whatever his name is. And so we went through this period from like 2010 on, where essentially every software company was unbundling a function that used to be done in Excel, right? Or something like that. And now AI is going to collapse all that back. So I see the real opportunity as somebody who really gets a vertical, right? Like I really get accounting for dentists. I'm going to come in and I know what they do. So I'm going to start building the software and agents for them, maintaining them. Yeah, the dentist isn't going to build their own
Right.
ERP or accounting system, but you could. And then you could take out QuickBooks or whatever the other person is. And then think about the dentist. They've got all these other people they pay for knowledge services and software. Each one of those is now your target because you
Right.
can build the software and you
And just
know
to
the
be clear,
client.
right. Just to be clear, it's not just the QuickBooks, it's the client management, it's all of that stuff.
100%. Everything. You're now a managed service provider for dentists to help them do their work.
Yeah.
Right.
On a somewhat related note, talk to me about, is AI about efficiency or is it about improving results and effectiveness?
I think it's much more about improving results and effectiveness. It certainly creates efficiencies.
Right.
But I think efficiencies has this sense of we produce X, and so we want the cost of producing X to go from Y to Z. What I'm saying is X doesn't really mean anything anymore. We can just go way past it.
Right.
So that to me is like the improvement factor. That's what it's really about. Sure, it'll create some efficiencies. And if you just deployed it and said, I don't want to do any more business and I just want to fire some people and get rid of costs, sure. But I mean, that's like taking like the most sophisticated weapon in the world and being like, I'm going to bring it to a backyard brawl, right? And it's just like, it's not the appropriate thing. Like, what the real value here is, I can expand, like what I was just talking about with a customer. I can do all this other stuff with them. So my take has always been, you're going to get rid of employees, and the ones you're going to get rid of are the ones who don't want to work with AI or can't or something. But once they learn AI and they're 10 times more productive, are you going to fire an employee that's 10 times more productive than everyone else? I don't think so, right? So like what you're going to do is just expand the aperture of what you can work on. And that's where the psychosis comes from too, right?
Right. So I have a bunch of questions, and I want to make sure there's actually some thinking here about getting them in the right order here. When you're talking with business owners, let's say ones that are not in your course, the ones that are in your course at least have said, hey, that there's something here and I need to, right? What do you say to business owners who are thinking, you know what, this stuff's still early, there's still a lot of problems with it, I'm going to wait another 12, 18, 24 months?
Yeah. So I tend to be like, are you kidding me? Like, you're going to get destroyed. But I had a very good conversation with Jay Goltz, who's on the 21 Hats podcast. He called me after I was on there one time. And he was like, you know, what we should say is not the fear-based message. We should say, hey, if I told you about the internet in 1998, would you have wanted to get involved with it sooner? Of course, the answer is going to be yes, right? Like, there's so many opportunities. And I would say, okay, take that shot. You'll survive for 24 months. I mean, we're not going to roll everything out and do everything in, that quick a time. We're still humans. But the reality is the opportunities on the table right now, every industry is going to be remixed because of this collapse of services and software into each other. Don't you want to be a part of that? Like, that's a massive opportunity. And then I think 18 to 24 months, you're just starting. Maybe the tools will be really good and you can do it, but there are going to be a bunch of people who are already in there, already sold all this stuff and probably replaced you, right?
Yeah, I have two comments on that. One is, I think this is different than the web in, let's say, 1998, 95, 98, in that if you were a business and you didn't build a website until 2006, but yet you had a good flow of business, right? Mm-hmm. You were okay. I think you're going to end up, because of what you said earlier, this is about effectiveness. This is about driving better results. Your competitors that are jumping on the AI bandwagon now are just going to be light years ahead of you, and trying to catch up then, I think it actually might be, sorry for the fear-based message here, but I think it might be too late. Not only because you're late to the game, but because you also don't have a culture in the business of change. And I think that's a big part of this, because it's not just about adopting AI. Everything's going to change in your business. I think that's why at Work Better Now, we're on this AI first drive now, because everybody's got to get used to change. And of course, the specifics around using AI.
Yeah. And that's what I'm saying. It's not deterministic, right? So you're going to be constantly tuning, managing, adjusting the agents, the AI. That's your job, right? This is the vision I painted for people in the cohort. People come to work when you hire them. You plug in an MCP connector. That's today, right? With Cowork. Maybe this evolves a bit, but it's going to be about the same, right? And that database has every skill for that job, every agent that's involved in that job. So if you're in marketing, it has a website agent, and it has the customer finder agent, it has whatever you do, right? And they have names, which is what I recommend. Name your agents, because then they feel like real employees. And like, you sit down at Claude Cowork and say, what's my job? And it says, you do this. Here are the agents that report to you. Here's what they've been doing. Here's how you work with them. And then they do the work. And then you monitor and adjust it. Right?
Yeah. So I want to come back to, you use the word deterministic. And the way I would explain that, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, the way that I'll explain that to people is, you could ask AI to do something, or you can ask it a question at two different times and you might get two different answers.
That's right.
Now, there's ways to deal with that, but that goes to what you're saying, which is the worker, the knowledge worker, is now going from doing the work to managing AI and ensuring that the work is doing right. And by the way, AI is going to do it faster, and it's going to probably make a lot less mistakes, especially if you set it up and monitor it correctly. So I just wanted to explain that deterministic thing in view of how everybody's role is now going to change, at least if you're doing this. If you're not, again, then you're really at risk of falling behind. And falling behind, I think, means losing customers, losing margin. I think it becomes pretty painful.
100%.
Speaking of teams, what are your thoughts on how should a company who's on board with what we're saying here, how should they be thinking about, or what should they be doing in terms of retraining their team, particularly those that are like, all right, I'm on board for this AI change. How do they retrain their team from doing the work to now managing AI?
Yeah, so I thought that was a very difficult question 6 months ago. I was sort of at a loss as to what to actually do that what I thought would be effective. That's why I just started training owners. So I was like, at least I can get the person at the top using this. Maybe it spreads, because there wasn't a good platform to train on. Microsoft Copilot was a complete disaster. Google just, even though they have an okay model, they weren't incorporating it in a way that made sense to me. And most people were stuck in the chat interface of like ChatGPT, Claude. And then the difficulty of getting into Claude code involves increased security risk. You got to download all these kind of packages so that Claude or Codex can execute Python scripts on your desktop, and people are scared of that, and it was a mess, right? And IT doesn't want to do it. And so there was just no way you could tell people how to build GPTs and stuff like that in Claude projects, but there just wasn't like a really scalable way to do this. I think that's what co-work really was, right?
To me, the LLMs are all powerful in terms of what they can think, where Claude seems to be killing it, and we're not handicapping a horse race here, but where Claude seems to be killing it is it's all about the interface. Claude really understands the value of the interface, and they're building these really good interfaces out. For example, just so everybody's clear about this, Claude Co-work is now this interface where Claude can now work within your computer with some controls, of course, somewhat autonomously, as opposed to you having to upload files here and there. And I'm overstating it.
It sandboxes it into one folder, right? Whereas Claude Code can go anywhere on your computer. And it gives you a better interface. Like when it's asking you, can I do this? It kind of explains what it's doing. Versus Claude Code gives you like, hey, do you want to run this bash command? And people are like, I don't know.
Right. Yeah. The command prompt just scared the crap out of a lot of people.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
I want you to clarify one other thing too, please, which is single player, multiplayer, right? We started to talk about it a little bit in the beginning, but why don't you define what multiplayer is and the importance of it in an organization?
Yeah. So it's really going from individual people building stuff for themselves to make themselves more productive, to scaling AI to the whole organization, to every team. And I think we're just at the foothills of that, right? The interface being the really key thing, right? And so now we're going to have the interface. Now we have to have the system. I think the next step is that we still don't have great enterprise controls over how to use. I don't want to go too deep on when we're using AI, we're building everything into skills and plugins and all this kind of stuff, right? That's how we do repeatable processes in AI. And so the ability to provision, sunset, update, control who gets access to what, that is still a little like uncertain. And that's, Microsoft's working hard on that. We'll see what comes out with Copilot Co-work. I haven't seen it yet. Anthropic has got to go there too, so that you at your company can provision people in the version I was saying earlier, where someone walks in, it's like, here are your agents, here are your skills, right? But right now, a lot of that's like skills live on a machine. Or if you have a Teams plan, you can centrally administer them, but like, the other problem you run into is like the models are getting better every 2 months now, and that's going to go down to several times a month by the end of the year, right?
Yeah.
So what if the skill becomes OBE'd by the model? Well, you got to sunset those things, because like now what Anthropic's doing is they have a skill creator skill. And when you create a skill, it goes out and tries different versions and looks at its native prompt versus what you built, and then asks you to compare the outputs. Right? So you can be like, oh, well, this isn't really any good anymore. So we've got to build all that architecture in so that someone's not using a skill from 18 months ago, right? Or someone's not just building all the skills on their computer and no one else can access them. That's sort of like what I see as the next frontier for enterprises in this.
Yeah, and also along those lines, access to data. If you're going to give your LLM access to data like what you might have in HubSpot or whatever CRM you're using, or even like payroll data. And, you got to make sure that not everybody has access to the data that they shouldn't have access to, and all of that other stuff. That stuff still needs to be figured out. So again, multiplayer is where it's not just one person working with certain skills or projects, if you will, but where several people or an entire department or essentially the entire company can tap into those same things. So bringing this all together, we're talking to business owners here, small, mid-sized businesses. There's still some progress that will be happening over the course of the year in terms of things like multiplayer, data access, and all that other stuff. What's the advice that you give them? Where do they start? What should they be thinking of? What should their goals be for this year? And how should they be thinking about the future? Sorry for the multi-part question.
Go download Cowork and pay $100 a month. You can pay 20, but pay 100, and start using Claude Cowork. And this is what I urge people. If you're like, how do I use Claude Cowork? Ask it, and it'll be like, tell it what kind of company you are and what you do, and then be like, well, how could I use this? Blah, 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 right? Okay. So you can come take my cohort if you want. We'll see if I offer some more down the line. But just go ask it what to do with it. So that would be the first thing. And then just go ask it what a skill is and how would I use it? And what skills do I have that I should encode, right? So I had this example the other day where I basically built an agent to do SEO and now GEO. And it's better than somebody who's charging you 12 grand a month or 5 grand a month or whatever. Then I was like, oh, well, they develop content. Someone said, oh, but they develop content that's right. Well, then I started building an agent where I was like, okay, not only edit my website for GEO and SEO, why don't you go search my competitors' websites? What did they publish recently? How does that stack up on SEO and GEO? And based on the news in our industry, what they're writing about, what you see, what should I write about? Why don't you send me an email with all the topics? And if I like one, can I just have you write it? Yes. And can you just then publish it to my website? Because I build my website in Claude Code and I just say, go make the changes. And yes. So like literally I can take like what somebody would have charged $10,000, $20,000 for, and I'm paying some tokens for it. But I think that wipes out the entire content development industry, right? And you look at what Claude put out last week. I mean, they put out 2 things. Figma, they recreated Figma in Claude Design. Figma's done. And then they created these routines in Claude Code that kind of take out Zapier and Make. And it's like, what are they going to do next week? What industry are they going to destroy next week? So anyway, I just say like, get in there, start working with it, and realize it's going to radically alter how we do work in every part of your industry. And this got to be a priority for you now.
Yeah, I'm going to summarize all of that, which is puts a lot of time in your calendar to embrace the rabbit holes.
That's right. Yeah. Claude, get the psychosis, right? You'll understand it at some point.
Right, that's right. It's really amazing, though. You do need the time and the desire to just learn and to play with it, and you'll be amazed what happens. Alan, this has been awesome. Really fantastic. Thank you for sharing all of this. Where can people find out more about you and Owners RX?
Yeah, just email me at alan@ownerrx.com. And I'm always around. I do some cohorts. I do 2 or 3 or 4 a year. And just trying to ride the wave here as things change. And I'm looking at some investments in separate niche areas kind of along the lines I'm talking about where services and software are collapsing. So I kind of do the training and then I'm like looking to invest and partner with people to exploit some of those opportunities. But yeah, reach out anytime. I'm always happy to talk.
Yeah, for the audience, I'm looking at Alan as Alan's one of those guys who's one of us. He's a business owner and he's like the AI guy for business owners. There's probably others. I could think of a few others, but Alan's one of them. And subscribe to his newsletter too. Where would they do that?
That's ownerrx.com/newsletter.
Ownerrx.com. Hit that. Alan, thanks again, and we'll see you soon.
It's great to talk. Talk soon.
Thanks for listening. The New Talent Playbook podcast is brought to you by Work Better Now. Don't forget to review, subscribe, and download the workbook for this episode at the link below. If you'd like to connect with us, you can find us on LinkedIn at the New Talent Playbook Podcast or visit thenewtalentplaybookpodcast.com.